So, does your nonprofit ask for donations in New Jersey? You know, even just having a Donate Now button on your website could count. If the answer is yes, then you're going to want to stick around. We're about to break down exactly what you need to know about staying compliant in the Garden State.
All right, so this guide is part of our series all about multi-state fundraising compliance. We're really just trying to make all these complex rules a little easier to digest. And today's explainer is brought to you by the folks over at Ironwood Registrations.
Okay, if you take away just one thing today, please let it be this. You have to register in New Jersey before you start asking for donations. I mean, the second you start fundraising, that compliance clock starts ticking. And believe me, this isn't something you can just go back and fix later. Getting it right from the get-go is absolutely crucial. So, that leads to the big question, right? Who exactly has to register? Let's dive into the scope of New Jersey's requirements and figure that out.
Now, I want you to think about your own organization for a second. Do any of your fundraising campaigns, even the online ones, reach people in New Jersey? If there's even a tiny chance the answer is yes, then you'll definitely want to pay close attention to what's coming up.
You know, one of the biggest misunderstandings we see is around what solicitation actually means. And let me tell you, New Jersey's definition is, well, it's really broad. It covers the whole shebang, from that Donate Now button to your email blasts to your social media fundraisers. The bottom line is this: if someone in New Jersey can see your fundraising appeal, the state considers it a solicitation. Simple as that.
And here's another thing that really trips people up. It honestly doesn't matter where your nonprofit is located. You could be in California, Florida, anywhere. If your fundraising message reaches into New Jersey, you've got to play by their rules. It's all about where the donor is, not where your headquarters is.
Okay, so let's say you figured out that, yes, you do need to register. What's next? What does that process actually look like? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the forms, fees, and financials.
The good news is, New Jersey kind of streamlines this with two different forms. For most smaller organizations, you'll use what's called the CRI-200, or the short form. Pretty straightforward. But if you're a larger organization, or, and this is a big one, if you use any kind of professional fundraiser, you'll have to file the more detailed CRI-150I long form, and that's true no matter how much money you raise.
Now, what about the fee? Well, it's not a flat rate. New Jersey uses a tiered system that's based on your contributions, so it scales up. We're talking as low as $30 for smaller nonprofits, all the way up to $250 for organizations bringing in over $500,000. It's really designed to make the cost fair based on your size.
Okay, here's a super important tip, especially for your finance folks. When you're figuring out which fee tier you fall into, you get to exclude government grants. That's right, they don't count towards the total. This can make a huge difference in what you end up paying, so make sure you pull those numbers out before you calculate your fee.
All right, now I want to talk about one specific number: $1 million. Keep that number in your head because it's a really big deal in New Jersey's compliance world.
So what's so special about that $1 million mark? Well, once your yearly contributions hit that number, New Jersey kicks things up a notch. You'll need to submit a full set of audited financial statements. And that means getting an independent CPA involved. It's a pretty big step, and it definitely requires some planning ahead of time.
So, you've registered. Great, but you're not done. Registration isn't a one-time thing. It's more like an annual subscription you have to keep up with. So let's talk about what you need to do every year to stay in good standing. Luckily, the deadline is pretty easy to remember. Your annual renewal is always due 6 months after your fiscal year ends. That's when you'll submit your updated financials and your latest Form 990. So for most of you who are on a calendar year, your magic date is June 30th.
But what if you're not ready? Maybe you're still waiting on your Form 990 to be finalized. It happens, right? Well, New Jersey does offer a 180-day extension, but you have to do it right. There are 3 key things to remember. First, you have to request it online. Second, you have to do it before your original due date. And third, and this is the one that gets people, you have to pay the filing fee with your extension request, not when you actually file later on.
And what happens if you miss that deadline without getting an extension? Well, the state will hit you with a $25 late fee. But honestly, the $25 isn't the real problem. The bigger issue is that your organization is now out of compliance, and that can really mess with your ability to fundraise legally.
Okay, so with all that said, does everybody have to register? Not quite. The law does have some specific exemptions. So let's go through the most common ones and see if maybe, just maybe, your organization gets a pass. So,
There are a few types of organizations that get an automatic exemption in New Jersey. We're talking about groups like religious organizations, accredited schools, and certain membership organizations that only ask for money from their own members. And the best part? If you're in one of these categories, you usually don't have to file anything at all to claim it. It's just automatic.
There's also an exemption for really small charities. But listen closely because the rules here are super strict. You have to meet all 3 of these conditions. 1, you raise $10,000 or less per year. 2, you're run completely by volunteers. And 3, you don't use any professional fundraisers. If you miss even one of those, then sorry, this exemption isn't for you.
So as we start to wrap this up, you can see New Jersey has a pretty thought-out system. And when you boil it all down, the goal behind all these rules is pretty simple. It's all about making sure nonprofits are transparent and that donors can feel confident when they give, knowing that someone is actually watching out for them.
Look, managing all this compliance stuff, especially when you're fundraising in more than one state, can be a real headache. And as we've talked about, that requirement to register before you even start fundraising means you really have to stay on top of things. If this all feels a little overwhelming for your team, the experts at Ironwood Registrations can definitely help you navigate it. You can find out more over at their website, ironwoodregistrations.com. Thanks so much for tuning in.